Hi, I'm Phil Anderson and welcome to my channel. I've been a property investor now for over 30 years and I've watched investors continue to make the same common investment mistakes. There's so many dirty tricks in the real estate industry and it's all caught up in a whole heap of sales hype. I want to cut through that sales hype and help investors avoid the common mistakes. I hope you enjoy the following content, but please remember to like and subscribe. G'day listeners and viewers across the country and welcome to another episode of Street Smart Property Investing, where I'm joined again by Mr. Trent Durrington. How are you, Durro?
Phil, I'm good, mate. What about you?
Mate, never better. Mate,
you buying or selling?
Mate, I am selling, but we'll talk about that next podcast and I'll tell you why on the next podcast. Yeah. But the reality is what I want to do for the viewers today is I want to talk about the volume of people that we are seeing buying sight unseen in the property market. Now, there's some real tragic mistakes you can make when you do buy sight unseen, but we've done plenty of it over the years, mate. And I think there's some lessons we can share with people, how we've stayed on track. So we'll cover a few topics. One of the big things right off the bat is Canstar released a report just recently highlighting that there are more people that are comfortable buying an investment property sight unseen than there are adult Australians that are comfortable to buy a dog or a boat. Some really crazy findings. So numbers. People are really comfortable about buying sight unseen at the moment.
Yeah, well, unfortunately they have to. Mm-hmm. Many Sydney and Melbourne people are forced to do it. It's just another transition or outcome from post-COVID world. Mm-hmm. So it is interesting. We've had our clients do it for many, many years, mm-hmm. As long as it's got a lot of guarantees and things. But it's just where people's mindset are today.
Mate, we've turned buying sight unseen into a process, a checklist, a recipe. A lot of people don't have the luxury of that knowledge. They haven't been doing it as long as we have. And of course, like you said, they've been forced into that situation. COVID has changed the Australian property market in so many ways. Forever, right? There's so many things that are coming out of COVID, the way that people are happy to inspect a property online, rental inspections being done by FaceTime, a whole range of different things that we're seeing that could become very much the norm moving forward. Virtual auctions, we're now seeing land go to auction before it's even released online, which is just crazy, conditions because of the amount of demand and the lack of supply, obviously. But number one, we've got a few tips here. And number one, I would start with a firm suggestion, that when you are going to buy sight unseen, please don't lose track of why you're buying. And I see people do this because they get online, they start treating it like they're shopping online. So many people are comfortable with shopping online now for clothes and retail items. But when you get to that property level, you really need to understand why you're buying a property, and you need to stay firm with why you're buying a property.
Oh, key, mate. Yeah, no, it's the strategy.
Mm-hmm.
It's reaching out, getting experts around you, understanding what your short, medium, long-term goals are.
Mm-hmm.
That's the foundation, really.
Defining that property profile, knowing the job it's supposed to do.
Yep.
Buying an investment property should just be a vehicle to create wealth. What is the right vehicle for you? When do you need the outcomes? What are the measurable results along the way? So really understanding what's the right vehicle for you and sticking exactly on track, narrowing down that search criteria.
Sure. No, 100%.
Yeah, mate, Look, one of the big things, number two, would be once you've got that property, I think if you are buying sight unseen, you're doing it, via those online inspections and stuff, is to be able to tighten up the bolts very, very quickly by running the numbers. The numbers really should do the talking. What will it cost you? What will the rental income be? What depreciation benefits are still available on that property? Hopefully, if it's a brand new property, you've got maximum depreciation, but not all properties are going to be obviously brand new. Body corporate fees can blow out. Yeah. Things can go really wrong, right?
Yeah, it's all about the numbers specifically on that transaction. But then also putting those numbers back into your forecasted strategy, see how that particular property how soon it can give you the ability to duplicate.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people lose track of the numbers because they get, distracted by the emotion. They start looking at the property through their own eyes as an owner-occupier rather than really seeing it as that vehicle to create wealth. And they underestimate how much things like, strata fees within, unit complexes and that sort of stuff can just erode away at your numbers.
Yeah.
And today, mate, really,
it easily takes it from 5% to a 4%, depending on that specific property.
Now, mate, in the Sydney and Melbourne market, it can take it from a 4% to a 2%.
That's right. Yeah.
Real quick, right? Real quick.
Yeah, which is really hurts your wallet every week.
Absolutely, mate. And in this market, with the interest rates the way they are, every property should be cash flow positive based on 100% finance.
Even with some buffer, mate, they should be, because at the end of the day, this rates will go up. Probably not in the short term, but they will.
Yeah.
But there should be plenty of buffer there, and just another indication of working out your numbers.
Mate,
having the right strategy, making sure those numbers can see you through good and bad times.
Absolutely, mate. I think it's a really good point. Like when you talk about interest rates will go up, we test the numbers based on higher interest rates than today. But at today's numbers, even an average investment property based on 100% finance, all your rates, all your insurance, all your property management fees, it should still come out cash flow positive.
100%.
Cash flow positive.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 3, love thy neighbours is something that we've been talking a bit about lately. Over the years, we've focused a lot on buying in great neighbourhoods, knowing what the local, emerging or regentrification that's happening in the local market. We love seeing trendy cafes and a real change sweeping through, local suburbs. We definitely like a high percentage of owner-occupiers.
Yep.
Mate, there's so many aspects that you don't get if you're just looking one-dimensionally at a property, and some people can make that mistake. They look at a property pack, make a decision based around that property pack, and not realise that they're surrounded by, a high density of renters or whatever it may be. That isn't necessarily all bad, but you need to be aware of what the conditions are that you are entering into, because it will affect capital growth and your experience as a landlord.
Yeah, that's right. And, one day you want your investment to be as liquid as possible. Mm-hmm. So whether that's, you get the timing right and it's only 12 months, 2 years, or whether it's a 10-year plan, you still want that property to be as liquid as possible and preferably sell to an owner-occupier.
Yeah, mate, and we are seeing a lot of, I hate to put a brand on a particular part of the industry, but we are seeing a lot of advisors putting clients into good, strong yielding product, dual income or something similar in some markets that I think are still pretty good, but not disclosing the fact that the estates are pretty much all investor stock, all renters, and I think that could come as a surprise to some investors. They drive through that estate a couple of years down the track and there's a high percentage of people that aren't taking care of lawns and gardens and so forth. Now, there are some sectors of the property investor space that are very comfortable with that, but I think as an investor you need to go in with your eyes open, and if it is about safety and minimising the risk, I think there's things to be aware of there as to how.
100%. As long as there's been full disclosure and you understand what's where you're buying and what that ratio of owner occupied investment is, and their access to work, infrastructure, on the flip side, it can come just down back to the numbers.
Yeah,
absolutely. If you're doing putting the cash flow, after-tax cash flow money in the right offsets and paying down primary mortgages, it's just all about the numbers.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point, because I had someone pick me up on something recently. I said that I wouldn't, had some people looking for some advice off me, what area to buy and etc. And I was judging particular estates, saying I think there's too high a percentage of renters in that market.
Yeah.
And that gentleman said, you think you're helping people, but you might actually be hurting people. And I took that a little bit on the chin at the time. I was a little offended, but I took it on the chin because he said, just because you wouldn't buy in there, what you've just described to me is a property that's about to go up probably $250,000 in value over the coming years. It's already producing $250 a week or more positive cash flow. I could pay down my mortgage quite substantially over the next 10 years by that extra positive cash flow and help pay off my family home. He said, I find it hard to see a negative in that. And I was like, Good point.
Yeah,
you know
very
what I
good
mean?
point.
Even those
Yeah.
suburbs can work really well if you've got a strategy to match up with it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's these 5 points we're talking about today all intertwine, come in and work within themselves against the numbers.
Yeah, and mate, like I said, it doesn't have to be always perfect, but it has to be perfect for you. It has to be perfect for your strategy, right?
Well, you've heard me say, mate, the worst investment is the one you don't make.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you got to get busy, get off your ass and get in the market. And when you use that as an example, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, it is. It is, and it depends on where you're at in that investment stage.
Sure.
But there's lots of people that are in the workforce for another 10 or 15 years. They could really do with good, strong depreciation schedules, which makes a brand new property so much better for them in the stage they're in. But that extra positive cash flow can put a massive hole in that mortgage on that family home over that next 10 or 15 years, saving them $100,000 or more. You know, so there's lots of layers, just one really well exercised property. So number 4 for me would be about supply and demand. You know, when I look at a property market, and if you're buying property sight unseen, I think it's really important not just to run the numbers based on that property and what the projected rental income would be, etc. Try to get an understanding of the benefits of the depreciation, and we like to project out cash flow for all of the investors that we work with. But if you're doing it on your own, you might need an accountant to do that. But one thing you can look at much more closely is the vacancy rate in that area. Across Australia, there are so many markets with, in rental crisis situations. For me, a market that's in rental crisis, got great growing population, it's that supply and demand ratio that you can use very much to your advantage at the moment.
100%. You got those numbers at your fingertips. You've got 2 levers at the moment. It's obviously your vacancy rates, which are extremely low, but you've also got capital growth going. So you've got rents rising with capital growth, which is typically they go at different times. So that's interesting in itself. But no question, you want to make sure when you take possession of a property that you've got a tenant moving straight in.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're doing you're doing your numbers based on today's rents, quite often, particularly the people who we're seeing that are in a construction phase where they're going through controlling a land, building a property, taking possession of a new build home, if you can get the land. Typically they're getting the keys, the rent's gone up $50 a week, the property's gone up $50,000 or $100,000 in value. So it can be a very good experience if you're coming into a market that's got very low supply and it's got rising demand. Yeah,
well, you got, even on the new product on that scenario, you've got a lot more tenants wanting new over old. So, at the moment, there's dozens and dozens of applicants for a handover, and tenants fighting property managers for applications and trying to pay overs to get into properties.
Yeah, it's good that you say pay overs, because I think the fifth point I think we should point out, fifth and final for this podcast anyway, is don't get emotional. Don't pay the overs. Don't get caught in a emotional arm wrestle with somebody about a property. Stay on track. Make sure that you're buyer ready. The only chance you've got to buy on a property at the moment is to get fully finance ready, know your strategy, know the profile of the property, be ready to drop the hammer. Hopefully the day that it, you see it and it becomes available. If you can do, your criteria clear enough and you just stay unemotional about that buying decision, I think it takes so much more risk out of it, and you don't get clouded by, judgment that's very much a personal-based owner-occupier style buy.
Spot on. It's emotional comes back to our point one. It's all about the numbers. You got to understand that strategy. Well, that was 2. Understand your strategy. 2, know the numbers. And then the last point is don't get emotional. Yeah, it's all about the numbers. Yeah,
and mate, look, I know you're the master of this, of buying, and using, quality control measures, making sure that you've got sound confidence around the fact that the property is of good quality. There's no building defects, it's zoned correctly, there's no issues and so forth.
Yeah, we want tenants to stay there and continue to renew those leases. We don't want a turnover of tenants.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, guys, I hope you got something out of that today. I know there's a lot of you that are looking to buy sight unseen. It can be, a problematic experience for a lot of people that don't go in and have some sort of framework. Use some of those ideas, but reach out to us if you'd like to know a little bit more about how you can buy interstate and vice, obviously buying online with safety and confidence. Take care, guys, and we'll talk again real soon. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to subscribe, and also feel free to leave me a question. I look forward to helping as many property investors as possible. Take care, and we'll talk soon.